Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes, well, heaps of information and boils it right down to what you really need to know.
Getting you truly informed fast.
Exactly. And today we're diving into something that, yeah, sounds maybe a bit technical, but it's super important if you're building apps, especially with Spring Boot.
We're talking data transfer objects, DTOs.
Right, TTOs. Think of this as your quick guide, your shortcut, really, to understanding a core idea for making apps efficient, safe, and just, cleaner to work with.
Perfect if you want the essentials without getting bogged down.
Yeah.
And the source we're looking at today is great, really beginner-friendly stuff.
Fantastic. Okay, let's unpack this then. Kicking us off, what actually is a DTO?
Yeah, good place to start. So, at its heart, the DTO pattern is basically a way to organize data and, well, move it around inside your Spring Boot application.
Okay.
Think of it like a simple container, maybe like a lunchbox. It's designed to carry only very specific bits of data that you need for one particular job.
So not everything.
No, exactly. Maybe just say a user's name and their email. That's it.
So how's that different from, I think the term is entities. Are they not the same thing?
Right. Good question. They're definitely different. See, your entities are usually the objects that map directly to your database tables. They hold all the detail.
Like everything in the database row?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
IDs, timestamps, maybe even sensitive things like passwords. The database needs all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the problem is you rarely want to send all of that information out.
Why not?
Well, for one, it's often way more data than needed. And second, some of it might be sensitive. You definitely don't want to accidentally show a user's password on a web page, right?
Absolutely not. Okay.
So the DTO acts like a tailored, simplified version. It carries only the essential pieces, just the name and email for the web page, leaving the password and internal IDs safely behind.
That makes a lot more sense. It's like a specific package for a specific purpose. So how does that flow? How does the data move using these DTOs?
Okay, so think about the layers in your application. You've got your database layer down at the bottom, talking to the database, right?
Mhm.
And maybe a web layer at the top, handling user requests and showing web pages. DTOs are often used to carry data between these layers.
From the database side up to the web side.
Exactly. Let's take that user example again. The database layer might fetch the full user entity ID, name, email, password, last login time, the works.
Okay.
But maybe the web layer only needs to display the name and email on a profile page. So before sending the data up, you'd convert that entity into a user DTO that only contains the name and email fields.
I see. You filter it.
You filter it,
Yeah.
precisely, you tailor it. And the good news is Spring Boot actually helps a lot here. There are tools and libraries like MapStruct or just built-in mechanisms that can often automate that conversion between the entity and the DTO for you.
Oh, nice. So less manual mapping.
Yeah, it saves a fair bit of boilerplate code, which is always welcome.
Okay, I like the analogy you used earlier, the lunchbox. It's like packing just the essentials for a short trip instead of hauling your entire wardrobe along.
That's a great way to put it.
It makes the whole process seem much more efficient and definitely more secure.
Exactly. Efficiency and security are key benefits.
All right, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why? Why go through this extra step? Why add this DTO layer? Isn't it just more classes to write, more code to manage?
That is the question, isn't it? And it really gets to the heart of good software design. It might seem like extra work initially, but developers use DTOs because they make applications, well, better in several key ways. More efficient, more secure, and honestly just easier to manage long term.
Okay, break that down for us. What are the big wins?
Sure. First, beta simplification. You're picking only the fields you need for a specific job, like for a product list, maybe just the name and price. Forget stock levels or supplier codes for that view. It makes the data you're working with in that part of the code much simpler.
Less noise.
Less noise, exactly. Second, this is a big one, improved security. By deliberately leaving out sensitive stuff, passwords, internal IDs, credit card info,
Right.
you drastically reduce the risk of accidentally exposing it.
Right. You can't leak what you don't send.
Precisely. Third, better performance. This follows from simplifying the data. Sending less data over the network, especially to a web browser or a mobile app, means things load faster, fewer bytes, quicker response.
Makes total sense, especially for users on maybe slower connections.
Definitely. Fourth, it leads to cleaner code. You get this nice separation between how data looks in your database, the entity, and how it needs to look for, say, a specific API response or a web page, the DTO. It's like keeping your kitchen tidy by having separate areas for prepping ingredients versus plating the final dish.
Keeps concerns separate. I like that.
Yeah. Fifth, flexibility. You can create different DTOs for different needs from the same underlying entity. Basic info for regular users, maybe more detailed info in a separate DTO for admins.
Tailoring the view.
And finally, number 6, easier collaboration. When you're building APIs for others to use, maybe a mobile team or another services, DTOs act like a clear contract. Here's the exact simplified data format you'll get. It makes integration much smoother.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty compelling list. So, thinking about someone listening, maybe just starting out or wanting to level up their Spring Boot skills, when are DTOs most useful? Where do they really shine?
Good question. They're really valuable in a few common situations. Definitely if your app shares data externally with users via a website, with a mobile app or other services, that's prime DPO territory.
Okay.
Also, anytime you're dealing with sensitive data, user details, financial info, anything you wouldn't want just floating around, DTOs help log that down.
Security first.
Absolutely. They're also great for larger, more complex applications where just keeping the data organized becomes a challenge. DTOs enforce structure. And as we mentioned, anywhere performance is critical, especially for networks.
So, APIs too.
Oh, definitely. If you're building APIs, using DTOs is pretty much standard practice. It gives you that stable, clear contract for your API consumers.
Got it. Is there ever a time not to use them?
Well, yeah, there's always a trade-off. They do add a little bit of overhead. You have to define the DTO class. You have to handle the conversion from the entity. So for a really tiny, super simple application, maybe like a quick prototype with only 1 or 2 data fields, you might skip them. Might. But honestly, it's such a good pattern and helps prevent problems down the line, especially as apps grow, that I'd argue it's almost always worth considering. It's a good habit to get into early.
Okay, that makes sense. Build good habits from the start. So let's flip this around. What specific problems, those common headaches you see beginners run into, do DTOs directly solve?
Right, let's talk pain points. A huge one is exposing too much data. It's so easy, especially when you're starting, to just return the whole database entity directly from your API endpoint.
Yeah, seems simpler at first glance.
It does. But then you realize you're setting the user's password hash, internal database IDs, creating timestamp stuff that the front end doesn't need, and, worse, could be a security risk if exposed.
Ouch.
Yeah, DTOs fix this. You explicitly define, say, user public profile DTO with only username and maybe join date. Problem solved. It's like giving someone the menu, not the whole kitchen's inventory list.
Nice analogy. What else?
Slow performance. Setting that whole entity, maybe with lots of fields or even related data pulled in, can be heavy. Lots of data to serialize, transfer over the network, deserialize on the other end. It adds up.
Especially on mobile, I bet.
Yeah, exactly. A slim DTO with just the product name and product price for a list view. Much, much faster loading times. This data transfer, snappier app.
That's a direct win for the user experience. What about code structure?
That's another big one. Messy and hard to maintain code. If your web controllers, your services, your UI templates are all directly using the database entity, everything gets tightly coupled. A change in the database table structure can ripple through and break things all over your application.
Ugh, the ripple effect.
Nightmare.
Total nightmare. DTOs create a buffer. The web layer depends on the DTO. The service layer maps the entity to the DTO. Now, if the entity changes, you often only need to update the mapping logic in one place, not everywhere the data is used. It keeps things separate and cleaner, like, keeping your cooking prep messy, but the final plated dish pristine.
Love that. Keeps the chaos contained.
Exactly. Then there's inconsistent data formats. If different parts of your API or different services return slightly different versions of the same entity, it gets confusing for whoever is consuming that data.
Yeah. Is user ID included here or is it just EID?
Right. DTOs let you define clear, consistent structures. This user summary DTO always has EID and name. This order details DTO always includes these specific fields. It provides predictability.
A stable contract. Precisely. And that ties into the last one. Difficulty adapting to changes. We touched on this, but DTOs act as an abstraction layer. You can refactor your internal database entities, change how things are stored, but as long as you can still map that data to the existing DTOs your API exposes, your external consumers might not even notice.
That buys you a lot of freedom for internal improvements without breaking things for others.
A huge amount of freedom. It decouples your public interface from your internal implementation details.
Okay, this is crystal clear now. So, zooming back out to the listener, someone may be just getting started or, wanting to be really well-informed quickly. Why is knowing about DTOs particularly great for them?
Well, for a few key reasons. First, It helps you write safer code almost immediately by making you consciously think about what data you're exposing. Big win for avoiding common security pitfalls.
Less chance of accidental leaks.
Right. Second, it actually makes complex data structures feel simpler because you're dealing with smaller, tailored objects in different parts of your code. Easier to wrap your head around.
Less overwhelming.
Third, you get performance benefits without necessarily needing deep optimization skills yet, just by sending less data. And like we said, tools can help with the conversion. Fourth, it instills good habits for code organization right from the start.
Sets you up for success later.
Totally.
Right.
And finally, it's just how things are often done in professional teams and real-world projects, especially with APIs. So understanding DTOs makes you better prepared for that environment.
Are there any, common beginner traps with DTOs, though? Things to watch out for?
Yeah, a couple. Sometimes people go overboard and create tons of slightly different DTOs for every tiny variation of the DTO explosion. That can become a maintenance headache itself.
Okay. So be strategic.
Be strategic. Maybe use optional fields or think carefully about consolidating views. Also, you do need to keep the DTOs and the mapping logic updated if your underlying entities or your front end needs change. It's an extra layer to maintain.
Right. It's not magic. Still needs attention.
Exactly. But generally, the clarity, security, and flexibility benefits, especially for anything beyond a trivial app, really outweigh those maintenance points.
What a fantastic breakdown. So we've really seen how DTOs, these data transfer objects, are a powerful tool. They let you build apps that are faster, definitely safer, and just better organized by being deliberate about how data moves around.
That's the essence of it, precision and data flow.
Yeah.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding patterns like DTOs is really about more than just code. It's about architectural thinking.
How so?
Well, it's about designing systems that are robust, maintainable, and scalable. How do you decouple different parts? How do you manage complexity? DTOs are one piece of that puzzle, helping you separate your public API contract from the messy details of your internal database structure. It's fundamental stuff for building serious applications.
That's a great way to frame it, thinking about the architecture, not just the lines of code, which leads us perfectly into our final provocative thought for you, the listener.
Let's hear it.
How might this idea of data contracts this principle of consciously deciding exactly what information needs to be shared, where it needs to go, and when? How might that apply in other parts of your life, even completely outside software? Could thinking that way improve clarity or security or efficiency elsewhere?
Ooh, interesting. Like defining the API for your personal interactions or projects.
Maybe something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into DTOs.
My pleasure.
We hope this has armed you with some really clear insights and maybe sparked some ideas. Keep exploring, keep building.